that most people go through, and the type of death that would even come in through the doors here. And so you're already talking about a very specific type of death to even come into this office. And then to be unidentified is a whole other situation. That is a person. The unidentified body is a person, but they're disconnected from their social context, and we don't know who they are. And so it's really interesting in terms of the ownership of that body, and in terms of what can and can't be done to that body and what needs to be done. Taking the skull, we have to take the head off of decomposed, or we have to cut the head off of people that haven't been identified after a long time, which is horrible. I've talked to families after, unfortunately, they've insisted on opening the body bag. They had no idea what they were getting into, and they saw a blackened, headless corpse. It looks like that person was hacked up, and we would hate to make people feel that way, but when a body is coming in as an unidentified body, there's so much that has to be done to get that person ID'd. And so there's, you can think about it in terms of rights. What rights does that person have as an unidentified body? Or in terms of violence, I think about it sometimes in terms of obviously structural violence. I don't think that we are being violent to the dead, but the fact that they have to go through all of that after death. Not only did they die trying to cross the border, but they rotted. And then they came into some office where nobody knows who they are and had to literally take them apart, take their hands off so that they could be rehydrated for fingerprints, take their head off, take their pubes out. I mean, you're literally cutting up and taking bones out of a body. It's pretty gruesome. And it's done for, humanitarian purposes to try to ID the person. But maybe the family and the dead person wouldn't necessarily want that to happen. But we are always operating under the assumption that we would, that the family would rather know, and that it's an act of human rights to do everything that we can. But some of that is very, very hard to watch that go on and try to explain it to families. I'm trying to explain to families when they're asking me to come and see the dead, to come and look through the dead themselves, or to see the photographs of the faces. And I'll have to basically tell them that they don't have a face, that they can't look at the dead because there are no faces for the most part, in terms of the people that we're talking about.
Do you have to remove the head because, is that only when it's decomposing? Or if somebody came in relatively undecomposed, does the head also have to be removed and then?
Well, it would depend on how long the person remained unidentified.
Is that for anthropological purposes?
Yes. So, it's very rare that a fresh, recognizable body would go through that, but some of our unidentified have come in as relatively fresh bodies, and for whatever reason, the reporting of missing persons in this context is incredibly decentralized. So there's so many different places that the family could think of to report. They might have reported directly at home, in their hometown, in their village, wherever, to the authorities there, and the report just never got where it was supposed to be. A lot of the people are very poor indigenous people from southern Mexico and Central America that don't even speak Spanish, and that are very, very stigmatized, and there's a lot of racism against indigenous people in Mexico and Central America. And so I've heard a lot of stories from families that they've tried to report to their local authorities, and they've been kind of turned away or belittled. Well, he just went north and he's off sleeping with other women and he left you. That's kind of one of the rumor tropes that you kind of hear to excuse this. But yeah, just to conclude, it's pretty rare for that to happen with very fresh. So you'd wait to the point where basically the body has been in the morgue for 6 months, and for whatever reason we still haven't ID'd them, and then we would kind of go to the anthropological stuff, which requires the stuff to be removed, the bones to be removed.
In terms of the women you find that have crossed, do you check if they are fully fleshed? Do you check if they're victims of sexual assault?
It's generally very, very tough to tell. For the most part, we're finding decedents several days after they died.
Okay.
It's, for those that are being found very quickly, I'm not sure if that's like a standard part of, I know it's a standard part of autopsy to kind of examine everything externally and internally. But those people that are found very, very fresh, they may only go through an external examination and not get an autopsy. But I have asked pathologists here about that before, and to my knowledge, there's been no accounting for sexual violence, but we know that it's a very common problem for migrants.
Do you try to preserve the bodies in the morgue or in the cooler, or are they just pretty much decomposing throughout the year until?
Yeah, the cooler is kept at like 51 or 52 degrees, and that's about as much preservation as we do. Yeah. So we don't do any embalming. We kind of, I mean, it's, you know, kind of that's something that we consider to be the decision of the family, because it's sort of an extra thing. Not everybody wants embalming.